This special presentation of The Spitzer Era, a legacy of faith and mission, is proudly brought to you commercial-free by KHQ Television.
It was once Spokane's best-kept secret, a small Jesuit campus, tucked between residential streets and the flow of the city's river. A name that no one could pronounce beyond Washington borders. A perfect place for quiet academic pursuits.
The last, 10 years, it's just amazing.
Before new buildings and legendary moments, before crowds.
This is our largest class again, isn't it?
Oh, by far.
And crowds.
He ascended into heaven.
There was an idea to blend faith and learning.
I want us to give you a roadmap for the future.
The first academic year was taught at Gonzaga in 1887. Over the next 100 years, the campus would gradually grow. Swell slowly with the new buildings and more students. Blossom in all areas. But the school would remain small, sort of like a secret held tight. Its quaint nature nurtured by those who lived, worked, and studied here. And then it all began to change. From basketball to building, the revolution began.
When you start talking about buildings like the chemistry lab and especially the McCarthy Center and the baseball field and the soccer field, and it goes on and on. The list just never stops.
All you have to do is look at this campus and the transformation that's occurred here.
Gonzaga has transformed in every sense of the word over the past decade. In the 1990s, it was a struggling institution, working hard to remain viable. The beauty of the campus was shadowed by financial woes and a declining student population.
Gonzaga found itself not only hurting for money, it was hurting from students. So we dropped from, we were running 600-700 students, which was not high to begin with, and we were down to 500 students by the time Father came in 1999.
It was no longer a secret jewel, just an unknown.
The university community was in need of something that would help re-energize and redirect the energy. I think we were probably depressed as an institution.
The saving grace would come in the form of grace and faith and a financial mind. A Jesuit priest, Father Robert Spitzer, would work to reinvent a campus and at the same time support a less religious pursuit that could, as some would say, put Gonzaga on the map. The physical campus itself is the most obvious statement of change, but the change goes far beyond new walls and erected stadiums.
I think he really made us believe that we could be great. And that takes real leadership, in my opinion. I think we've always known we were great. We always said we were the best kept secret. But in my area, which encompasses marketing and PR, being the best kept secret isn't necessarily a good thing.
Inspiring faith and energizing a community was just part of the plan presented by the incoming president. In fact, Father Spitzer's initial plan would become the stuff of legends and laughter.
So immediately when Father came in, he did a plan, and it probably had arrows going every direction. I think we kidded him. He had like 98 new initiatives on this plan with arrows going everywhere.
The plan was like a never-ending all-you-can-eat buffet, and it was a tremendous amount to put on everyone's plate. But it was his plan, and ultimately his vision, that would help create the Gonzaga of today.
So he creates in you without imposing it on you. He creates in you that desire to buy in.
So actually, you'll see next Monday,
It wasn't simply more enrollment. It wasn't simply more or higher SAT scores, or simply more faculty, or simply more fundraising. It was being able to do all these things simultaneously.
And so by your child's entrance into the community,
he has a vision for whatever he's associated with. And certainly he is an essential component of it, but it's not about him, it's about what he's trying to accomplish.
beauty and coordinated with engineering and all of its precision.
In a position of president, you really have to be the visionary, you have to be the leader. You have to have an idea of where you want this university to go.
The progress of Gonzaga University.
He's always had in his mind that this school can compete with any of the schools on the West Coast.
The new buildings all over the campus, the new dormitories. I think he built in 10 years about as much as built in the prior 100 years.
And at the same time, Gonzaga would become a media darling, a rising star in the world of college basketball. Father Spitzer and Mark Few would work as a team to help create the Gonzaga of today.
He and I are kind of the same. I'm into growth, I'm into a vision, I'm into trying to accomplish everything you can, and having a president like that was just the greatest blessing you could have as a young head coach.
Father Spitzer saw Mark Few as a major part of his plan for success.
He's been so modest, so easy to work with, and he has been our Newt Rockne. And I don't know how I knew it, but I knew it. It was an intuition which proved to be true. I've really enjoyed working with him immensely.
But Father Spitzer almost didn't become Gonzaga's 25th president. In fact, he was not the school's top choice. The ailing institution needed a leader, and offers were made to a handful of other candidates.
Initially, Father didn't pass our screen because of his lack of administrative experience. And it was only after we'd gone through a whole series of candidates that we gave serious thought to visiting with Father Spitzer.
All of those people declined, and finding the right person wasn't easy. The search committee needed a Jesuit priest who can inspire a following, but can also pull the school from the brink of financial disaster. The university needed a numbers cruncher and cleric, someone who was pure of heart, but had a shrewd mind.
Well, we were doing a lot of the interviewing in Seattle. Father came in and he was just all a Twitter, as he often is, and he was just full of energy, and he just sat down and just blew us our socks off.
He freely admitted his lack of experience, and he claimed that he was going to spend a month sitting at the feet of Father Sundberg at Seattle University and another month with Father Locatelli at Santa Clara University to learn how to be a president. And that was at the time I didn't think too much about it, but about 4 years later I asked Father, I said, Father, were you serious about that? And he says, well, what do you think? So we learned early on that Father had an answer for everything.
I had, a very deep love of Gonzaga from the time that I was here as a student, and very much wanted to serve and thought that I had a lot to give. And so I was surprised that I was asked, because I thought that, well, somebody who was a little older than 45 would be asked, to be the president. And I had some initial ideas, a lot of interviewing going on, and finally a decision was made, and I was appointed president then beginning in July of '98, and haven't looked back since.
To understand his Herculean efforts to improve Gonzaga over the past decade, it's worth a visit to his past. His love of the university began as a teenager and student. He himself will say the small Jesuit campus literally transformed him and put him on his path towards presidency.
It was the campus visit, boom. Once it happened, I was absolutely convinced.
After a trip to the campus in 1968, his decision was made. Gonzaga was the place for him.
I found myself, I got a selfie at Gonzaga, I got a heart. And that heart, I really kind of had it a little bit, but I really didn't trust my emotions at all. And if you said empathy to me, I'd have thought touchy-feely, forget that. I mean, I'm a hard numbers guy, just the facts, ma'am. And by the time I got out of Gonzaga, I really did have a heart for humanity that could appreciate people and have a genuine affection for people, which made me so balanced and frankly, very effective.
While an undergraduate at Gonzaga, a fellow student would ask Father Spitzer, just Bob back then, to teach a catechism class. At first he declined, but was persuaded to take the task. That moment, that class, and those kids changed his life.
You know how the Holy Spirit works, right? You find a charism you never thought you had. And these kids said, hey, you're a good teacher. News to me. I didn't even know I had the power of articulation. I'm a sophomore basically in college. And all of a sudden, it's these kids I'm serving, kind of reflecting this back to me, and it changed my life. I mean, look at what happened to me.
Father Spitzer would always have the mind of a numbers guy, but his heart and spiritual devotion would lead him to become a priest.
The calling is a life experience, and the life experience has a tremendous drawing power, a tremendous attraction in it. Good evening, everyone. And of course, you kind of go, oh, I'll inch toward that, all right. And then the next thing you know, you're just literally catapulting. You know, you're going full blast toward this goal, which you never imagined yourself. And that's how I kind of discovered my call that led to the Society of Jesus.
The Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, would be a natural fit for a spiritual man who loved academic life.
I wanted to be a priest who would be a teacher. I mean, my religion was incredibly important to me at that time. And the teaching, I could see the value of that, being impressed by these particular Jesuits who, were teaching economics, and philosophy and history.
But his path to priesthood wouldn't be without a major challenge, a physical and emotional hurt. While studying abroad in the Middle East, preparing to take his vows, he would have a hard time focusing on his keyboard.
So I thought, man, I must need a bifocal or something, and so I went to the doctor in Italy when I got back from the Middle East, and I said, I think I really need a bifocal. She said, no, questo non è un problema della bifocale, è un problema della retina. And when I heard that, I thought, uh-oh, I didn't want to hear about retina.
Father Spitzer was diagnosed with a retinal disease. He was in his early 30s, and at the time was told he may lose his sight within months.
Oh, I think I went through all of Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of death and dying when this happened to me. I mean, I really did. And yeah, there was some bitterness. There were angry days, when I'm sitting there with a magnifying glass trying to read the points on my Hebrew. To one, he gave 5 talents. To another, 2.
While admittedly he felt fear and anger, Father said he eventually saw the gifts that accompanied his impairment. While in darkness, he became enlightened. While learning great empathy for others, he also found himself.
I've gotten a great deal of humility out of it, which I needed. I've gotten a lot of empathy for people who have other kinds of disabilities, which I needed. I've purged every bit of this self-sufficiency stuff out of my system. You don't have to be self-sufficient to be effective. Since you have been faithful in small measures. Would I even be a Jesuit today if this hadn't happened? Well, yes. Would I be the kind of Jesuit that I am? No. No, I think this has been a huge boon to my vocation. In bringing inspiration
There's hardly a person who doesn't note the irony that a man with limited vision is a true visionary and has led Gonzaga out of dark times.
For a person who has impaired eyesight, I've never been around a person that had a better vision than he does. I mean, it's almost like God working there, that, you know, here's a guy that is challenged seeing, and yet nobody saw Gonzaga any clearer and had any better vision than he did.
God knows I love a good idea, and God knows I love a good algorithm, and God knows I love a good system. But more precious than all of these, the pearl of great price, is the empathy which makes love come alive.
He's the most extraordinary man I've ever met because of everything he's capable of doing, especially with virtually no eyesight.
His energy, his vision, his passion is contagious, and he's provided just tremendous leadership both for Gonzaga as well as our region.
He's a businessman, he's a philosopher, he's a mathematician, he's an accountant, he's a comedian, you know, I mean, there's just all sorts of words that come to it, but I think the best single word is a visionary.
And as you think about his impact on our community, he's been someone that has continually challenged all of us that live in this community to think bigger visions, bigger ideas for what we can be accomplishing as a community.
A lot of awfully smart people are not particularly good leaders and are not particularly visionary. And a lot of visionary and people who lead well are not necessarily really smart. So the unique thing about Father Spitzer, in my mind, is the combination of this incredible intelligence with vision and leadership. And that is an unusual, if not unique, combination.
When first diagnosed, Father Spitzer feared his life as an academic was over. Obviously, he was wrong.
And then I started getting scared. Well, wait a minute. It doesn't matter whether I gradually lose my eyesight. You know, I mean, I'm still I'll lose my academic career. Well, that's not been true. I've published like a madman.
Father Spitzer would go on to be an academic, a much-loved professor at Seattle University and at Georgetown, and then he was hired at his alma mater. At 46 years old, he would become president of his beloved university.
I think there were some people that felt like, my goodness, this guy is coming right out of the classroom.
He was definitely young and inexperienced, but smart enough to know that Gonzaga was in trouble. Father Spitzer isn't the kind of person to dawdle, and in 1998 he set forth an aggressive plan of attack to get Gonzaga back on a path to success.
Where is this going? And it was just fun to see what he was thinking about, and he had it all in pieces and strategically placed in what we should go to first. He was a dynamo right in the beginning. You know, and I thought I always had a lot of energy. Oh, this man has so much energy. So I felt it quickly.
The plan was expansive, but there were things working in Father's favor. It was a season of change on campus and on the court. Gonzaga, once the underdog, was becoming a prize in the West Coast Conference and was letting the nation know that the small Jesuit school out west could come to play. They were the Cinderella team that was about to be invited to the ball. The Bulldogs were making headlines. The team was strong in postseason play and would join the royal rankings of making it to the big dance. The journey picked up momentum on the eve of a big game with Minnesota in the first round of the NCAA tournament. The Midwest team would lose many of its best players the night before the game with Gonzaga. It was a devastating blow to the Gophers lineup. Gonzaga went on to win it 75-63. The glass slipper was on, and it was a perfect fit. The team and fans were elated by Gonzaga's newfound success, and no one was more excited than Father Spitzer. On the bus ride following that game, Father and then head coach Dan Munson had a conversation that would long be recounted.
Here we are, we have just done this fantastic defeat of Minnesota at the Seattle Arena, and we're riding back from the Seattle Arena, and Dan Munson was sitting right next to me on the bus.
And we were all excited, and I think I got up and I was talking to the kids or something. I don't remember it vividly, but I remember he chipped in and said something like,
"Boy, you know, I think we could probably beat Stanford." And Munson turns to me and he goes, "Whoa there, partner.
Don't get carried away here and start evaluating what's going on."
So, of course, you know, everybody was laughing on the bus. So I don't remember what I said, but I acknowledged the basketball retardation and then turned around and said, but maybe we will win. And we did.
They may have laughed at Father Spitzer's naivete or lack of athletic acumen, but Father Spitzer turned out to be right. Cinderella had come to the ball and didn't want to leave. The Zags took on Stanford and they won it, 82-74. Energy built, fans went crazy, and a dynasty was about to be born.
Only the man upstairs.
The West Coast Conference, often the forgotten stepsister, was at the center of attention. In the next game, the Bulldogs would go on to beat Florida 73-72. That moment would change Gonzaga in a way that no one could have predicted or really understood. A point on the scoreboard would put Gonzaga in a different league. It would never again be an unknown. It would be crowned the Cinderella team. And they were going to the Elite Eight. It was a run towards greatness that did more than just bring cheers and headlines. It would help bring students, money, and notoriety to help with Father Spitzer's vision. But even a visionary would have a hard time predicting that Gonzaga would be in the Elite Eight that year. But the historic run would only be defeated by a team of destiny that would eventually go on to win the national championship. Gonzaga lost to Connecticut by 5 points, and by the time the glass slipper came off, major changes for the university were already in the works.
You know how you have just a gut instinct? It's not ending this year. Well, I had that instinct. And I had that instinct even when Dan Munson came up to me with the news, you know, he's going to move to Minnesota. I was crestfallen, literally crestfallen. But I remember being at that press conference when Mark Few was going to be installed. And I just had this instinct, it's not ending here. Whatever that is, you can call it synchronicity, I don't know, call it whatever you want to call it. That gave me a real sense of conviction.
That's where you got to give Father Spitzer and Mark Few the credit. They didn't just see it as a flash in the pan, but they saw it as a program and sustaining. Gonzaga is here to stay because of the leadership and the vision, and it starts at the top in Father Spitzer.
Mark Few would take over as head coach, and a new era would begin. The energy on the court was spilling over into campus. The hype generated over the players was bringing unheard of visibility to the small school. But even athletes in their collegiate prime would have a hard time keeping up with Father Spitzer.
Right, it just starts with that fascination with something, and the fascination grows to a deep interest. The deep interest grows to a kind of enchantment. The enchantment grows to the burning heart, and the burning heart is literally pointing us in a brand new and unexpected direction. That heart is so good. You can either have a comparative one or you can have a contributive one. And there is an instinct which comes out of this. And of course, if you're so lucky, and many of you will be, to see your eternal effects for all eternity. Sometime you could be giving a lecture on the general theory of relativity. I don't know. The decision to try and learn everything you can, to choose empathy, is to choose a commitment. Those gifts of inspiration, you guys are going to be in a perfect position to be leaders in that capacity. Thanks so much.
His energy was without end, and his colleagues would soon learn.
You know, I've always thought I had more energy than most, and I can live on not much sleep. But I said, honestly, he makes me look like I'm in a coma.
It goes beyond energy. He simply brings an enthusiasm to everything that becomes infectious. But he is so enthusiastic and so dedicated about things that it's hard not to be caught up in that enthusiasm.
He loves his caffeine. He's not a healthy eater, but he eats whatever he drinks and eats. It just drives his energy even higher.
Well, Mountain Dew is always good, and a good cup of coffee is great too, but actually I really like what I do. I think having a joy about life and having a real sense of personal mission, those two things, they just give you energy.
The students are all standing up and they want everybody to stand, and he's the one standing up over there in his clerics, cheering, yelling, shaking his arms. I mean, he is energetic at basketball, he's energetic in his sermons, he's energetic as the president. He doesn't lose that energy.
Oh, hey Anthony, nice to see you.
His enthusiasm may only be matched by his intelligence. Father Spitzer's spiritual pursuits have always intersected with an academic life, a classroom, often a pulpit.
You're fortunate if you meet 2 or 3 geniuses in your lifetime, real geniuses, and certainly Father Spitzer is one of those 2 or 3 geniuses.
Oratory is huge for the Jesuits. I'm a bloviator myself.
I talk about Father is an onion, and there's these layers of complexity, and there's the first layer is the affable Father that you just can't help but like. He's always laughing. And a little bit below that is the intense Father, and then there's the spiritual Father, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. And you know, I always said, well, I think Father must have 20 or 30 layers, and I think I've gotten down to maybe the 7th or 8th layer.
His intelligence is obvious when he speaks. Regardless of group, it's like he's talking to a close friend.
I've been in the car with him. We're headed downtown to a luncheon where he's going to be the keynote speaker. And he's asking me questions like, okay, tell me what this is all about and what's the topic, what do they want me to address, and just then walks in there with a few prep notes and just knocks it out of the park.
And he has the ability in a big lecture to make it personal to 1,000 people at the same time.
The moment that we get a self that has this feel for intrinsic self-worth, if I might use the L word, the lovable self, you can look at freedom from the vantage point of freedom from, escaping from constraint, being inside oneself. But of course, mere values is a thought process, but virtue is something that is loved.
Under the covers with Spitzer is always love. Big heart, wanting to, with empathy, to help you. Whether it's, you know, a guy down on his luck on the street corner, or whether it's the CEO that's getting taken over. He can talk to any of those guys, and he cares. And he cares because he loves people.
That heart is powerless. That mind without a heart, that mind without a sense of love, that mind that would simply advance itself or get comparative advantage, never really feeling the spirit that comes out of making a contribution to others.
So each time he gives a speech, he always gives you something that you take away, and that changes your life, and you don't even know that he did it. It just changes you.
Lovely in eyes and lovely in limbs, not his, to the Father, through the features of people's faces. It is affecting us. Only reason, the parking structure, we could start that tomorrow.
While Father Spitzer excels at addressing a crowd, it is during his interaction with students you'll see him at his best. There's a bond between Father Spitzer and the student body that isn't often felt or seen at a university.
I think Jesuits' specialty in many cases are really loving students. And students know this. I mean, you don't have to go around telling students that you really love them or you really care about them. They can tell.
Oh, I love him. I mean, he's awesome. He's done so much for our school, and I think that's what makes him unique, is he's willing to listen to students and really, like, he values our opinion, I think, a lot. Takes into consideration what we say.
And you can tell by the way he talks about it and the way that he carries himself through the subject that he's so passionate about it, and that this school is his life.
To attract top students and build the population, Father Spitzer would strengthen the financial aid program and increase the visitation program.
We get this 70% turnaround on our campus visits, and the reason is They walk onto that campus within 3 hours of having experienced a community, within 3 hours of going to a class, of being with the rest of the community members. They'll turn right to their parents and go, this is a place for me.
Father has never been a behind-the-scenes leader preferring an open door, open campus policy,
Take care, you too.
where he inspires the students to interact with him and interact with their faith.
He walks around campus in his clerics, and he's not afraid to be Catholic. He's not afraid that he's a priest, and he's not afraid to be a Jesuit. And so he puts that out there and shows people that they can have fun while they do it.
Sometimes the opportunity is just to say a kind word to a little kid. Sometimes it's to say a word of consolation to somebody who is suffering. Sometimes it's to just share your faith where somebody just really doesn't have any idea that there is even a kingdom of God out there and that they're called into the unconditional love and joy of God. They have no idea, and you just sort of blurt it out and you change a person's life.
I mean, retreats and masses and all attendance for those things has really gone through the roof since he came here, and he's really put that out there to show people that they can be Catholic and have fun and have a great life and really enjoy it.
While his energy and intelligence have helped Father Spitzer forward his mission of transformation on Gonzaga's campus, Father has lesser obvious but widely known qualities that have helped him succeed. Father Spitzer has a way of making a point. Actually, 3 points.
The problem is with Bob's 3 points, there's always, 1 to 50 subsections of each point. And Bob has a way of he has so much energy, he has a way of wearing you out as he's going through, subset 49 of position number 2, and then he refers back to position 5 of subset 1. If you aren't quick, the Spitzerian boviations will kind of wear you down or confuse you, and he says everything with such confidence that how can you disagree with him?
3 things to remember about a utilitarian. Number 1.
He put 6 points into 3 points or 9 points.
And if I have 2 points, people will raise their hand and go, what's the third? They're anticipating. And then I always wind up saying, and these are my 3 points. Bam, bam, and bam. So you tell them you're going to have 3 points, you give them the 3 points, and then you summarize it again, and they walk out of the room, they remember it.
A man with a creative mind, Father would develop his own way of presenting the pros and cons. Certainly never a lie, only encouraging people to see the positive. First and foremost, it was to become his own accounting system and unique way of thought.
He's very well known by the board by virtue of his, what he calls his Spitzerian accounting.
Spitzerian accounting, okay. Well, that is a term our trustees use affectionately of me, and as you know, my philosophy in life is no opportunity left unseized. Making the most creative use of the numbers in order to get people to see what an intelligent decision a particular project is.
When he's trying to sell something, that was being the salesperson. Everyone will look and roll. Sometimes I'll look and roll and say, that's Spitzerian logic. We're not going to bite on that.
Well, Spitzerian logic basically always gives the advantage to the opportunity rather than the problems. So if there is a great opportunity out there, my typical way of presenting it is I present the opportunity in glowing terms and generally tend to underestimate the problematic features to the best extent I can without becoming wholly unrealistic.
And it's not that he's misleading you. Well, he is. It's, let's call a spade a spade. Like I say, over you, around you, under you, or through you, he's going to get to where he wants to get to.
His logic and his accounting would help support his vision of new buildings and updated classrooms. His mark is visible as your eyes sweep through the campus. A slight turn here or there, and you will see that Spitzerian logic and accounting embodied in buildings, 18 erected, renovated, or expanded in the last 10 years. He would oversee a more than $200 million conversion of a campus that includes a new law school, along with new business, engineering, and science buildings. There would be several new residence halls, a fitness center, and a soccer stadium. Of course, the McCarthy Athletic Center.
The building is important because at the time we had put together some really strong seasons, and we're starting to make a national footprint a little bit with our teams advancing into the NCAA tournament. But yet if you watched a game on television, everybody, it looked like we were in a high school gym.
So of course I'm sitting there talking to Mark, and I said, so okay, so the athletic endowment then this is what we're asking for, right? This is your top priority, right? And Mark goes, well no. I said, no? Well, what's your top priority? He goes, well, a new arena. I said, a new arena? Well, what do you think will come from this? Mark said, everything.
So many people don't understand it. You can use athletics to serve the entire university.
But there was something in that conversation with Mark Few. He's our Newt Rockne.
Somebody has to make those hard calls at the right moment to move forward. We couldn't have sustained that program in the old kennel. It wasn't sustainable. When you're competing against these very wealthy programs, that's a very difficult deal to do.
With a major contribution from the McCarthy family, Gonzaga would get a new arena, and with that addition, the GU basketball program continued to thrive and continued to bring success to the university.
The success of the basketball program, that could have gone at least two ways. One, which Bob was wise enough to do, was incorporate their success and build on it for the success of Gonzaga.
Father Spitzer got the fact that Gonzaga needed a marketing division, if you will.
Bob had the wisdom and the courage to see something that was very good, took it, and used it for great advantage for all of the university.
We needed a way to get our name out, how to differentiate our institution, how to get our institution on the map nationally. The basketball team became a very good vehicle to do that.
Probably the biggest thing at Gonzaga since I've been here is having a president like Father Spitzer that understands growth, not afraid of growth. Other people that I'd been around, you know, I think feared growth and were very content with the status quo. And I think that's the greatest aspect, at least, that I was able to experience from Father.
I think that the chicken and the egg arrived at the same time in this case, because I don't think one gave birth to the other, but it could have been quite a dangerous egg if the chicken would have stomped on it, and obviously that didn't happen.
Armed with the knowledge that a hot athletic ticket could be the university's ticket to success, Father Spitzer was open to ideas for enhancing the basketball program.
Let's face it, he came on board that same year we make a run to the Elite Eight, and he realized right at that time, I believe, that wow, this is special. This is doing things for this institution that we couldn't have imagined. And I think there's a possibility, again, that another person in that position would have said, this is great and this is good, too bad it won't last. When instead, I think Father realized that, hey, this is great for this institution, let's make sure it lasts. How can we keep this going? What can we do? What are the things that we're going to do to make this successful? And listen to some of our requests and suggestions. We started discussing the building shortly after the Elite Eight run. It took us a couple of years to get it done, but he was listening.
How Father Spitzer knew the program was destined for great success, no one can be sure. Possibly a lucky guess or divine inspiration, whatever the reason. Father Spitzer was a fan from the beginning. And while he is often courtside cheering on the team, he doesn't really see much of the game.
I know I can see images of what's going on down there a little bit. I really can't see the movement of the ball at all. I can't tell which player is which, except for, of course, Josh Heitfeld or, the really tall ones. Pretty much, if everybody's cheering and going, yeah, and I'm on a home court, I know, I clap too.
Oh my gosh! Oh!
ugly, but we'll take it.
While sight-challenged, it was Father Spitzer who had the vision to see success in a team that few thought would have the staying power of a powerhouse. And he's used his vision to revamp the campus infrastructure, strengthen the mission, and leave Gonzaga in a financially strong position.
You look at his impairment, his loss of vision, but you also look at what he's accomplished. He's very visionary. And so it's kind of an interesting, sort of juxtaposition there.
I think you don't have to see it to understand it, the vision part of it, but his mind is brilliant. Just because he's vision impaired doesn't mean that he doesn't have a vision of where this institution should be.
I wanted our students to have first-rate facilities. I wanted our students to be able to be proud of their alma mater, too. I wanted them to have the best facilities and technology that they could possibly have to enhance their learning experience and their academics.
But buildings were only part of the plan. Father's mission included developing a setting that fostered faith and fellowship, to develop a student body that would embrace a spirit of community and service.
Is this happening in our 120,000 volunteer service hours on campus? Oh yes. And so at the end of the day, it's starting to create this big, huge heart, which stands at the center. But it is a heart of hope, and it is a heart of love, and it is a heart of joy. And it's like I said, it's a fairy dust. It's almost that injection of spirit into our souls. And we take that with us when we leave into the communities that we encounter. And that's what happened to me. And that makes all the difference.
He wants students to leave Gonzaga and change the world.
What we're trying to give to people is heart, is soul, is mind on this categorical level, so that, of course, when it gets applied to the professional schools, engineering or business or law, education or the sciences or whatever it may be, that at the end of the day, that person is not just going to be a thinking machine. It's not just going to be a professional implementer.
Father Spitzer would define the 5 pillars of Jesuit education, and he would never vary from that mission of faith, service, justice, ethics, and leadership. Because before professorship or presidency, there is a priest.
Each of us is entrusted, as it were, with this eternal responsibility. Each of us is entrusted to have this eternal effect with our lives.
In one sense, it's a business, for someone can look at it that way, and there's an aspect of it that it is business. For us, it's a ministry. And for us, he is a priest there before he's anything else. He is a Jesuit priest.
In our world, he is an amazing academic with lofty credentials. However, he is also very much of the spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, he can look with the eyes of faith and see God in all things with perfect 20/20 vision and clarity.
He is primarily there as a Jesuit on a mission, building up a community of faith and justice to bring forward what the Lord wants done in the world. That's why Bob is there.
But Father Spitzer is leaving his beloved Gonzaga. The 2008-2009 school year will be his last.
We ask that we might truly fulfill this call, and in so doing, lead others into the fullness of your kingdom.
I hope that I have left a legacy here of mission. I really wanted the faith mission, I wanted the service mission, the ethics mission, the justice mission, and the leadership mission to be first rate.
Throughout Father Spitzer's tenure, he has masterfully ensured that the university remain mission-driven in all of its pursuits. In truth, I really believe that Father Spitzer has taught all of us to be builders of the mission.
I've started many leadership programs since I have been here. I've started many faith programs that I've been here, since I've been here, and honestly, those things make it all worthwhile because it enables me in a way then to just give the gift that I was given when I was here, and that gift was substantial.
The decision to follow the Holy Spirit right into the opportunity, and you will be asked. Trust me, you will be asked. And when you do it, it leads to a life of such efficacy. There is nothing better than saving a person literally from despair. There is nothing better than giving a person an entire new horizon, an entire new sense of their own dignity, an entire new sense of their call. There's nothing better than sharing this with people, and it quite literally becomes, for us, it becomes the means by which our lives are not only efficacious, but it is a true joy, and it builds friendships that last forever. I kid you not, I could be adopted by 100 families. It's a great life. Follow the opportunity. Follow the Holy Spirit into the opportunity.
Opportunity for Father Spitzer included writing 6 books, focusing on religion and ethics.
So the band of soldiers and their captain and the officers of the Jews seized Jesus and bound him.
Okay, now stop there and extend the Johannine verses.
While his sight has failed him, other senses and abilities have picked up the slack.
By fire in high priest's ' courtyard.
His memory is nearly flawless. He says it's not photographic, but close.
Good. Now we can flip to 15:1.
He can recall footnotes from memory. Some of his books have up to 1,000 footnotes. Many people can't remember what they had for lunch yesterday, but Father Spitzer can recall passages and page numbers from a book he read years ago.
But sometimes I can say, well, that's midway through chapter 3 of this book, or it's midway through the second part of this article. But sometimes I can actually tell you it's page 42. I have no idea how I know that or why I remember that. It's an absolutely useless fact, and generally I try to retain useful facts. So that's always been just a great gift.
I mean, you gotta pick your methodology.
Another gift of Father Spitzer's, his sense of humor. While a priest by calling, Father Spitzer is funny by nature. No one loves to laugh more.
Yeah, Sharon, that's great. I love it.
Or make others laugh as well.
Great question. You know, turn their ears into hamburger as much as possible. Yeah, always rather liked some of those approaches. Did I shoot 5 or did I shoot 6? Well, it's kind of one of my funny little lines when we get into these problematic situations. You know, I affect a Dirty Harry imitation or a James Bond imitation. It's a woman's gun, isn't it? So you know guns, Mr. Bond? No women.
Like Dirty Harry and even James Bond, Father Spitzer is a fighter. With campus growth and a change of pace, not all of Father's ideas were embraced.
Bob Spitzer loves to fight. In fact, he'll fight at the drop of a hat, and he'll bring the hat.
He has not always been the promoter of things that have won universal acclaim on campus, but I don't think that happens with any great visionary leader. Anytime you introduce avenues and directions of change, you get supporters and you get detractors. But I think he's left the face of Gonzaga University very different than it was.
I think he's brought a level of energy and quality and reputation to Gonzaga that we wouldn't have had otherwise. There are faculty who would say that he has pushed too hard and moved this place too fast, and some people wonder whether we're losing the core community, family feeling that Gonzaga has always had. I don't particularly see that. I think that core is still there, and in some ways it's stronger than it has been because there's more people that are kind of brought together and energized by all the great things that have happened in the last 10 years.
But if you don't have a general, if you don't have a leader that can lead the Army to whatever goal that you have, if you don't have someone to catalyze and organize, you're not going to get anything done. Bob didn't sit there and, oh gee, let me think about this, and let's get 14 studies and let's let's get a committee and whatever else. This is a guy that knows how to drive something like that home.
Because he is such a visionary, he has, golf term, things teed up there now for someone to come in who doesn't really have to start over again. Building a university, cleaning up a financial mess, we don't have any of that. He has a growth plan that is put in place that can serve us well for the next number of years.
He's sort of kind of propagating this idea of how do we get along and make the world a better place. And what's he going to do when he's gone? His contribution is that a lot of us are going to see that light a lot better and the world will be much better.
100 times over, 1,000 times over. It just seems as if the opportunities keep building on themselves.
A priest not afraid to fight who will be remembered for a long time to come for so many reasons to so many people.
You will be given grace upon grace this
A rare combination of an economist, a businessman, a builder, but also a great spiritual priest, a man of mission.
I think his legacy will survive long beyond his departure, and it will not be measured by the buildings he built, but just by having elevated us in the minds of our faculty, our students, our donors, as a really outstanding school on the West Coast.
It probably is Gonzaga University. It was the best thing going on in Spokane for 10 years, and he was in the middle of it.
I'm going to get through it, and I know I'm going to fondly think of all the good that came through the relationship I had with that man, but I will miss him so, so very much. I'll miss him.
The point I'm trying to get to is,
it's his faith, tenacity, dedication, sense of humor, friendship, and financial know-how that all make up Father Spitzer. His contributions to the campus are nearly immeasurable because they're so great in numbers, from the buildings and programs to the energy and focus of mission.
In my thoughts and in my words.
But when asked, Father hopes his legacy goes far beyond what's left on campus. Rather, he hopes his legacy lives in every student who leaves.
The spirit that I gave them maybe at a mass, or the spirit that I gave them or shared with them in a class, or the inspiration that I tried to give in a speech, or the inspiration that I tried to introduce to our Board of Trustees, or the inspiration with our community members and our alumni and our friends. That spirit, first and foremost, is what I hope my legacy will be.
And that alternative is a contributive identity, and where we make up our minds that we're going to try and make a positive difference. No, an optimal positive difference with our time, our talents, and our energies.
and I promise you that you too will be adopted by 100 different families.
That we want literally the world to be better off for our having lived, and optimally better off for our having lived.
And in all of that spiritual friendship, you will find a joy in Christ Jesus that, as Paul tells us, is unsurpassable.
To the culture and to the society around you, because that really is the spirit of Gonzaga.
No matter what else that president does, if they can cultivate that spirit, not just a winning spirit, but a spirit of heart and a spirit of values and a spirit of faith and a spirit of belief in people and a spirit of love, if they can communicate that and they can actually infuse it in the hearts of all the constituencies of this campus, and they are many, the students, the faculty, the staff, the trustees, the alumni, the friends, the parents, if you can cultivate that spirit and get it enkindled, it takes a lot to put out a spirit.
Father Spitzer says he'll miss life on campus, which is his vision come to life. he leaves Gonzaga to work on 2 institutes that he founded, including the Spitzer Center for Ethical Leadership. He'll continue to publish and use technology to deliver his messages of faith.
I mean, I leave a content man. I leave very saddened because, honestly, I love those kids very much. And I frankly think a lot of them are probably sad to see me leave.
Ourselves into situations where we are inspired.
There are, calls beyond where we think we are supposed to spend the rest of our lives. I am very actively trying to find and ferret out the person who's going to have the same degree of passion and love of these kids, that will have the same administrative numbers guy type approach to things, and to be able to take Gonzaga to the next level.
When Father Robert Spitzer came to Gonzaga 11 years ago, he found an institution in trouble. His mission was to inject spirit into the fading student population, to inspire a culture of caring and compassion, to make it financially stable, and to enhance the campus infrastructure. Mission accomplished. Bob will leave Gonzaga in an enviable situation, a thriving university, with a name that people now know how to pronounce. It is once again a shining Northwest jewel, its varied history part of its luster, its 25th president part of its success. The last 11 years may very well be labeled the Father Spitzer era. Enhanced by a time of athletic greatness, it is a partnership, a marriage that has flourished, and it's a blend of grace and greatness that has brought Gonzaga to where it is today. But the university's story is far from over. More than 100 years of history will likely lead to great things, and likely great things will await Father Robert Spitzer.
The preceding special presentation of The Spitzer Era, A Legacy of Faith and Mission, has been brought to you commercial-free by KHQ Television.